Yeah. Okay, excellent. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule to tune in to our very special guest that we have today, Sister Claudette Marie Muhammad. Sister Claudette, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation with us about life, your journey, your book, and about all of the years that you have put in work in this nation. Thank you very much, Sister Claudette, for spending some time with us today.
Well, giving all honor and praise to the God of our universe, who came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom praises are forever due. And I thank him for presenting in our midst the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, one who raised up millions and millions and millions of brothers and sisters in the human family to come into the knowledge of self. And I thank them both for giving the Jesus in our midst today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names and in the names of all the men and women whose shoulders we stand on, I greet you, my beloved brother, and those who are viewing this station, our greeting words of peace, of assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sister Claudette, I have done some extensive research getting ready for the questions for you. Both of my parents and my family members send the greetings as well, and they have a different perspective of you. But I wanted to introduce you to an audience of predominantly people who are 35 and under to understand your work better and all of the sacrifice that you have made. Sister Claudette, when did you join the Nation of Islam?
Well, sir, I became acquainted with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1983 at Ward Amy Church in Los Angeles, California. And I heard the minister speak, and I saw two brothers who were standing behind him, standing posts. But I saw another brother that looked like an elderly man, and he had a fuzz. And I asked my sister, who was that? And she said, that's the brother. And I said, no, that's not the brother. Of course, I didn't know the most honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time. So I had a spiritual experience. I saw the messenger, and he gave me a message of which I cannot disclose because that was directly to me. In other words, he was telling me to look at Minister Farrakhan, to study him, and to be with him and work with him. But of course, at that time, I wasn't thinking anything about being in the Nation of Islam. But I started coming out to the mosque, and Brother Khalid in Los Angeles, California, he and his wife, and I was attending a Catholic church right up the street. So I got the Catholic priest and some of the nuns to work with us at the mosque with Brother Khalid, and that's how we started with the community outreach program.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, my sister Miriam and Naima. I'm listening.
Pardon me, sir?
I said, I'm listening, ma'am. I was listening.
Yes, and I said in 1983, we went to the mosque in Los Angeles, and the minister was speaking. And when they asked people to come up and join, I came up and I started telling him a whole lot of things about myself. And he said, you go over there and you write a letter and give it to that brother there. That was Brother Khalid. And he said, give it to him and then he'll give it to me. So we went back home and I sat up all night. And my sister got up in the middle of the night. She says, why are you sitting up? I said, I'm waiting for Mr. Farrakhan to call me. She said, Carol, are you crazy? Mr. Farrakhan's not going to call you. So the next day, Brother Khalid called us and told us to come to Oakland, California, because the minister's going to speak there. And so many brothers and sisters were leaving Los Angeles, so all the flights were booked. So we caught a flight to San Francisco. And then we got in a cab. And at that time, that was in 1983, I didn't want to tell the cab driver we were going to hear Minister Farrakhan in Oakland because we didn't know what they might have put us out the cab, you know, back in the day, how people were about.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And some are still stupid enough that way now. So he said, well, come on, ladies, you got to tell us where you're going. And so we said, well, we're going to hear Mr. Farrakhan. He said, well, why do you tell me that? Assalamu alaikum. And so he drove us to, and then asked us upstairs and let us meet with him. And then he asked me, what kind, I understand you work public relations and you do protocol. And he says, and my sister said, you know, Mr. Farrakhan, she was so stupid. She sat up all night. He said, sit up all night for what? She was waiting for you to call. He said, well, if you would put the phone number in the letter, I would have called her. So that's how it all started. And he asked me to come and assist him in Chicago with their first International Saviors Day in 1984 with Colonel Gaddafi, the late Colonel Gaddafi. And then I started working as assistant minister. And I came back to Washington, D.C. and started working with Brother the doctor, Dr. Alim.
Yes, ma'am.
For 5 years, I worked, raised money, and traveled around the country and bringing people to meet the minister and to hear him speak. And I didn't join until 1985. So it took me 5 years to come into the knowledge of myself. All praises due to Allah.
All praises due to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Now, Sister Claudette, did you ever tell the minister what the messenger told you?
No.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. All right. I saw an interview where
I never told the minister because the messenger told me that what he was saying for me was only for my ears and my ears only.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. I saw an interview where you were discussing your book dealing with overcoming a lot of obstacles in your path since a child. Would you like to discuss some of the things that you had to overcome in order to become the great woman that you became?
Well, I'm not a great woman. Thank you for that compliment. But
yes,
I'm striving to be a great woman. But in my book, I speak about, I wrote my book and I wrote it in 3 nights and 4 days. And I took the manuscript to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he said, oh, sister, and he put it to his heart. He said, this is a great book. It needs to be a movie. I said, yes, sir. So I went back and I got a guilt feeling because I know I didn't put all the things that weren't so nice in my life in the book. So I went back and put all the other things that were not so nice. And then the minister said, sister, I didn't know you did all this. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, it's good you're being honest. That's the best way to be if you're writing about yourself. So that's how the book came about. And when I wrote it about, I talked about myself being molested when I was just 5 years of age. And I told him about myself being raped once my son was not quite a year old. And then the circumstances of my son's birth. I spoke about that in my book. And I would share it with you all now, but if I do, then nobody would go out and buy my book. So now you got a question in your mind about what I said in that book, and you need to go buy the book.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, excellent. Well, Sister Claudette, speaking of a book, this podcast is sponsored by my sister Miriam's book, ABC I Love Me. Thank you for putting the money up for this podcast. And my brother Rashad, he does video editing, and he put the money up, and they both sponsored this with Street Premiere as well. Thank you. Now, Sister Claudette.
Thank them both that I.
No, Nancy. Okay, 1 second. Okay, Nancy, you there? Okay, got it. So Claudette, we right here with you. Can you hear me? Okay, 1 second, you all. Thank you. We just got a little technical difficulties. We're working on it. Nancy, we're right here with you. Thank you all for tuning in to hear Sister Claudette and her book, Visions. And if you were just tuning in, she was speaking, and we're waiting on that, overcoming being molested, as raped as well, and not letting that deter her and keeping her spirit alive, and still having a great and productive career in life as well. Thank you, Brother Marcus from Detroit. Thank you, Brother James. I will ask all of these people's questions, and thank you again, Mimi. We're just waiting 1 second for Brother Nasser with the iTech technical crew to lock it in with Sister Claudette on his end. Hey, Sister Deshawn, thank you again for watching. You always tune in, and we're just working this small technical issue out with Sister Claudette and Brother Nasser in Washington, D.C. But we're holding it down right here. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to Off the Record on YouTube so you can see all of these, get the notifications and see the full interviews. All right, Nas, whenever you're ready, he'll let us know, Sister Claudette. I mean, they're working on the Wi-Fi situation in DC. So just some background information for people who are watching. If you all didn't know, Sis Claudette was the chief of staff for the Nation of Islam for many years, and she has traveled around the world representing the Nation of Islam, the Most High Louis Farrakhan, and us in a very great way. She just spoke earlier about, okay, hold on, let me see, Nancy's trying to get me back on. And hold on, Nancy, I see you. Here we go. Okay, one moment. Thank you, Sister Mimi. If people want to sponsor, they can just message me if you like to sponsor.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Going back, reminiscing, you asked me had I ever shared with Minister Farrakhan what the messenger said to me. I did share in part some of what the messenger said. And then secondly, allow me, if I may, I was chief of protocol to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, not chief of staff.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that.
And now I'm the national director of fundraising.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for that. Yes, ma'am. Sister Claudette, I was asking you about your work with, I saw that you worked with Fannie Lou Hamer in your past as well.
Oh, yes, sir. I came to Washington, D.C. in 1963 at the invitation of Congressman Lionel Van Derlen. He was a congressman from the 37th District of California, San Diego. And at the time, I was secretary to the Choias Club, which was the largest Democratic club in San Diego. And we helped get him elected. And he said when he was running, he would bring a black hire. But we thought he was just saying that to get the black vote. But sure enough, they interviewed 24 black women. And I was the one that got the position. All praises due to Allah. So I came to Washington, D.C. and at the time. And then I was also dating Congressman John Conyers, my old boyfriend. Friend like before, but lovers no more, okay? And so we were doing a lot of community outreach work, and we're working with the late Dr. King. And Fannie Lou Hamer was one of the main people. And so she came to my office and asked if I would work with her and Congressman John Conyers and others. And so that's what we did. She was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sister. Matter of fact, we rode on the bus together. And then when John Conyers was riding in the car, she said, I know you want to get off the bus and get in the car with him. I said, no, I want to get in the car with you. You're the most important person right now. So she shared a lot of things with me, how she was tortured when she was in prison, and how they put the, excuse me for using this kind of language, but using the torch on her private part when she was in jail, and also putting the torch to the back of her ear. I guess that's when you torture people. And those are the kinds of things that she endured. She was a magnificent woman. Fannie Lou Hamer. She's a person that we should all remember. And you say most of these people we're speaking to now, these brothers and sisters, they're under 35.
Correct.
Well, they can Google her.
Yes, ma'am.
Google her, and they'll learn a lot about her.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all. And I'm coming to all you all's questions. I just want to run these questions in a row, but I'm coming right back to you all's questions. Sister Claudette, also, you did a lot of work with Cathy Hughes. Can you explain to us your relationship with Cathy Hughes?
Oh, yes. Cathy Hughes. I first met Sister Dr. Cathy Hughes. She was over the Harvard University radio show. I think that's WHUR.
Yes, ma'am.
Howard. And at the time, Marvin Gaye was like my brother, the late Marvin Gaye. So Ernie Barnes, the artist, I promoted him. I'm sure you've heard of Ernie Barnes. And again, your listeners can Google him and find out about him. But they wanted to do, I wanted to do a commercial. So I went to Dr. Cathy Hughes, but she wasn't a doctor at that time. And so she allowed us to do a commercial with Marvin Gaye and someone else to help promote Ernie Barnes. And from that time on, we've been very good friends.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that Marvin Gaye was like your brother. Could you explain to us how you got close with Marvin Gaye?
Well, I got to meet Marvin Gaye through Ernie Barnes, the artist that I promoted. And Marvin Gaye used to come and he would visit me. And when he come to visit me, the whole neighborhood would come out. And then his mother and father lived right up the street. They lived about 4 blocks from me, and I would walk and visit them. And then his companion was about to give birth, and I was with them when their daughter was born. And that same daughter is the person who played the role of Muhammad Ali's second wife in the movie. Remember the Muslim sister? That was his daughter.
Ma'am.
And then when I was in Los Angeles, California, I was getting ready to go to Israel because I traveled a lot to Israel to visit the Hebrew Israelites. And I drove my car to Marvin Gaye's parents' home. And I walked up to the door at the knock. It was about 6 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And the Spirit of Allah came over me and said, go back in your car. And the next day I left for Israel. And when I landed in Israel, I found out that his father had shot him to death that night. And I had such a guilt conscience because I said, well, what would have happened if I'd have with them? Maybe I could have prevented it. But whatever it was, Allah put in my spirit to turn around and go back to my car and don't go into the house.
Yes, ma'am. Now, I also saw that you said that you worked with Muammar Gaddafi. How was that?
No, sir. No. Let's correct that. I didn't work.
Yes, ma'am, please.
I wanted brothers and sisters to come to Libya to see where his home had been bombed by America. This is what he said. And so we got people from the United States and also Canada. We had 500 people that I helped arrange for the flight there. And when we went, all of us met Colonel Gaddafi, including myself. And I took some of my family members there also. And he showed us the bedroom that his daughter had been killed in. And I was very close with the Liberian government. And I went to visit the ambassador of Liberia. And he told me that they got a warning that this was about to happen. When I say this, the bombing of Colonel Gaddafi's home. And he said most of the ambassadors got a warning and they left the country, but he stayed. And he took me up on the roof of his house. My biological sister was with me. And he showed us how the planes came over, right over their house, and bombed Colonel Gaddafi's home. So that's how I met Colonel Gaddafi. And when I went back to Libya, I was on a world tour with Minister Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. And thank you for your work and your sacrifice. And thank you all for continue to write your comments and questions, and I'm coming to them. Sister Claudette, Father,
excuse me when I correct you each time, but I just wanted to be sure the correct information gets out and not.
Oh no, ma'am. I understand.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. You've worked with Father Flager and have a working relationship with him. Could you explain that to us as well?
Well, I started community outreach programs when Minister Farrakhan. You see, the first time I went, I was there to assist him with their first International Saviors Day. I was there for 6 months. But then, and I still wasn't a registered believer at the time. But then when I became registered, the Minister Farrakhan asked me to come to Chicago, and I worked there in Chicago. And then he appointed me as his chief of protocol and national director of community outreach and congressional liaison. And by me being out in the community so much, Mayor Daley had invited us for a luncheon. And so I went to the luncheon representing Minister Farrakhan. And Father Flager came over to the table where I was. I was at the table with Mayor Daley. And he said, "Are you the sister that's arranging all the dinners at Minister Farrakhan's home with various leaders in the Chicago metropolitan area?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, I'm Father Flager, and I'm Caucasian." I said, "Yeah, I can see you're Caucasian." He said, would he invite me? I said, "I'm sure he will." I said, "But I can't speak for him, but what I can do is go back and ask him." So I went back and told the minister I thought he was a very sincere person, and and I let him know I was a former Catholic. And the minister said, "Well, yes, he can be invited." So he was invited. And the minister, you've heard him say, out of everyone at that table, Father Flager had the most profound things to say to him.
Mm.
And you can see at the last Savior's Day we had just back in February.
Yes, ma'am.
You heard what he said about Father Flager.
Absolutely.
He is my friend and my brother. He's a Catholic. I'm saying this now. He's a Catholic and he's Caucasian. But that makes no difference to Minister Farrakhan. He spoke at the church many times. And I visited, as well as other believers has also visited.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever seen a picture of his church?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Google it and tell your brothers and sisters who are listening to Google it, and you'll see a black Jesus.
Praise
on the
well,
altar. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And everyone who's watching, please Google Father Flager's church in Chicago. It's called Saint Sabina, and you all should definitely see the black Jesus on this Easter Sunday. Sister Claudette.
And excuse me, the Pope has just assigned Archbishop Walton Gregory. I just wrote him a letter as the Archbishop of the diocese here, Catholic diocese here in Washington, D.C. Because I just read a news article and they said over the 200,000 Catholics, Black Catholics that are here in Washington, D.C., it's a lot of racism going on. But like I told the Archbishop when I wrote it, racism is not only in the Catholic Church, it's all over the country. It's everywhere. So we just have to pray for him that he will be able to do what he has to do for the Catholic Church, especially for those minorities who are in the Catholic Church here in Washington, D.C. And I sent Minister Farrakhan a copy of the letter that I wrote to him.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. And thank you for that. Sister Claudette, have you worked with Jesse Jackson before?
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Reverend Jesse Jackson, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I go to Push quite often when I'm in Washington, when I'm in Chicago. And you see my book here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
One of the persons who wrote, Mr. Farrakhan wrote the foreword, and those who wrote the reviews is Dr. Maya Angelou, Dr. Cathy Hughes, Dr. Dorothy Height, and the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson. And they wrote some beautiful things as it talking about me and my book and my life. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Have you ever worked with Reverend?
And I sent this book to Bishop Gregory, and I sent him to the last two final calls. And I'm getting ready to send him this last final call, the coverage on Nipsey Hussle.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, excellent. What was your interactions with the late Juanita Longwood?
Yeah, that's my sister. I met. It's really something. I met Juanita Longwood through Muhammad, because I did some work in terms of promoting Muhammad Ali's boxing when he was here, and years ago, probably for his delegation of people that worked with him. And Juanita Longwood did a lot of work with Muhammad Ali, so that's how she and I met. And then she showed me a picture of her wedding. And I said, who is this in the picture? She said, oh, that's Minister Farrakhan. I said, oh, she said, oh, Sis Claudette, he's married with 9 children. I said, no, that's not the kind of feeling I'm getting the spiritual feeling. And she said, you never met him before? I said, no. And then the late Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, that was my brother also. And he and his wife and I were driving to an ambassador's home for a reception. And in the African tradition, the elder sits in the front seat with the driver, which was her husband, and she sat in the back. So he asked me to turn the radio station, turn it, and we heard a voice. And he said, leave that there, that's Farrakhan. I said, well, that sounds like the voice of the man I saw in the picture. He said, what man did you see in the picture? And I told him I saw Minister Farrakhan. He said, well, all that's coming together, and one day you will meet him, and you will be with him, and you'll be working with him. That's Kwame Ture told me that.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am.
Mariato. And I met his first wife when he was married to Mariam Bakiba. I met her when we were in Guinea. When I said we, when I went to visit Kwame too. Stokely Carmichael. I always call him Kwame too late.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. And thank you very much. Now, Sister Claudette, you've had some work or some kind of communication with former President Obama or former President Clinton. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. But not so
Could
much
you
with not so much with President Clinton. I was at a reception and I met he and his wife Hope. And later I met his wife several times. And I gave her my book. No, first I asked her if she'd take a picture with my book. Was she afraid to take a picture with me because I was a little Farrakhan? She said no. So she took a picture with me in my book. And then in terms of President Obama, when he was a senator, I arranged for him to meet with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. That's when he was a senator. And then when he became president, my home in Chicago at the time was in Regent's Park, and we had a big gymnasium there. And Mr. Obama and his family used to live there, but they still had an apartment. And so he came downstairs in the gym, and I was sitting down there, and I said, "Oh, have you read my book?" And he said, looked at me, "All I got to do." I said, "Well, you read your Bible every night, don't you?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Then take a page or two of my book and read it too before you read your Bible." He looked at me like I was crazy. So 2 weeks later, I got a letter from he and his wife, Mrs. Obama, a beautiful letter, and I have their signature to it.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
But we did meet Mr. Farrakhan, but he met Mr. Farrakhan when he was a senator. And we arranged for him to be in Father Flager's church when he had some speakers there. And he came, but he didn't sit in the front row with Minister Farrakhan and Reverend Jesse Jackson, but he sat 2 rows back. But that was political.
Yes. Now, Sister Claudette, speaking of seating arrangements and being political, you dealing with being the chief of protocol for all of those years, how did you set up the who sat where and the DS? And how did that all go about?
Well, I worked on President Carter, the late President Carter's inauguration. I was assistant deputy chief of protocol. And I learned quite a bit. But a lot of that I already knew anyway, you know. I mean, just how I was brought up. But then when Minister Farrakhan appointed me as the chief of protocol, we had never had a protocol department in the Nation of Islam. And so he made that a department, like the minister, secretary, and captains, NGT captain, and FOI captains. And now we have protocol department, all praises to Allah. And the work that I did with the President Carter's inauguration, that helped me a lot when I became chief of protocol of the Nation of Islam. And you asked me in terms of seating. Well,
yes, ma'am.
You know, there's no big I's and little U's, but we have to have respect for the ministers and for political officials and people who are head of organizations, and then people who really supported and helped Minister Farrakhan. So when these people come out, a list is composed, and the protocol staff meets. We have regional protocol directors, one of which is right here with me now, Sister Brenda Muhammad. And she's been with us for a long time. And we have to pay homage to the people that take the time to come out and be with the minister. And we can't disrespect them, no more like we would want anybody to disrespect Mr. Farrakhan. If he came, he would just be sitting anywhere, although he would come and sit wherever you ask him to sit. But, you know, you have to respect those who have various positions.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you. And thank you, Brother Marcus.
It's not that we think they're above other people. No, that's not it. It's just the respect that you have to give them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Marcus. Thank you, Sister Mimi, Rashad, Sister Deshaun, and Brother Junior Monroe. Thank you as well. 1 second, Sister. Hold on. Is there, okay. I saw that question, Sister Miriam. I'm just answering the questions from the audience real quick. I saw the question earlier.
Oh, and brother.
Yes, ma'am. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yes, I did. I said that I have to correct myself. I said the late President Carter when I worked in his inauguration. He's the longest living president we have. He's still alive. So he's not late yet. He's alive.
Okay, wonderful.
And speaking of getting up there, you know, I'm 81. All praises to the Lord.
Oh, you definitely don't look 81.
How I look? How do I look?
Man, I thought you was like 25. That's what I thought. That's Sister Claudette. Speaking of looking 25, you used to be a model. Could you explain to us about your modeling career?
Well, when I was I 18? I think I was 18. I won the runner-up for Miss Bronx, California. And in my book, you know, I just couldn't put that picture in there. I started to put the picture in there, the bathing suit and all. I didn't put it. But I was on the cover of Jet and also in the Ebony magazine. And when I came to Washington, D.C. with my congressman, I was asked by Mr. Johnson, who is the publisher and owner of Johnson's publication, to be an Ebony Fashion Fair model. So I went to my congressman and asked him if I could take 3 months off. He said, 3 months off for what? And I said, to model. He said, model? You need to model here and help me do work to raise the people up in this country so we can stop this racism. And I said, the congressman, they're going to put me on the front page and I'll have a picture with you. He said, okay, well, go ahead on. So that helped him get reelected too, you know. He's had a picture
okay, wonderful. Excellent. Now you were very instrumental in the protocol aspect of the Million Man March. Could you please explain to us what was that like being in 1995 and what was your function?
Well, that was beautiful. Minister Farrakhan appointed me as the National Deputy Director of the Million Man March. And we had many, many people who helped us and worked so much with us. Marion Berry, the late Marion Berry, and his wife, Sister Cora Mastersberry, was very, very instrumental, as well as so many people. And the minister asked me to come and work. And your father, we have to give credit to your father. He really worked hard. And you know, he worked very hard with the Dope Busters. And Congressman Jack Kemp, who also later became Secretary of, I think it was Commerce. No, Housing. Was it HUD.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I went to him because I knew him because I was a Chargette with the San Diego Chargers football team, and that's when the girls go out doing that script.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, and he and I became friends, and I went to him and I told him about your father and about Mr. Farrakhan, the Dope Busters, and what they're doing. So that's how that all came about. But your father was very, very instrumental with the FOI and also all the men in the community with the Million Man March. And that was such a historical thing. And then one day, Mr. Farrakhan and I was speaking. He said he had spoken to Dr. Maya Angelou. And Dr. Maya Angelou recommended the young sister that worked in that movie where the little girl was raped. I can't think of the name of the movie. And Jackson, the actor.
A Time to Kill?
Samuel Jackson played in that movie. So we hired that young lady. And Mr. Farrakhan said, well, once our manager found out it's with him, she wouldn't do it. And Maya Angelou said, no, she will. And 2 weeks before the Million Man March, we got a call saying that she couldn't do it. And so then I asked the minister, because my granddaughter was in the room with me. And my granddaughter said, well, why are you all paying somebody all that money when I can do it myself? And he heard me. He said, what did she say? And I told him. And so he said, get her ready. And we got her ready, and all praises due to the Lord. She was 10 years of age, and she spoke before 10 million men. The poem was written by Dr. Maya Angelou with words added by the Honorable Miss Sis Farrakhan. And she says now, Grandma, I'm the only woman in the world that had 2 million men at her disposal at the same time.
Yeah, praise be to Allah. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And in speaking about the protocol, we have approximately 175 protocol, regional, local, and national and a national protocol director now. But we have about 175 protocol directors throughout the Nation of Islam, the Caribbean, France, England, and I think Geneva, Switzerland. I'm not sure. All praises to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Now, just speaking of France and the Caribbean, out of all of the places that you've traveled overseas, what is your favorite place to travel?
Well, I've traveled to, it's in my book, I think I traveled to 84 countries around the world. I think it's 84 countries around the world. And the most fascinating countries that I've traveled to was China. Yes, 65 countries around the world. And the most enchanting country that I found and I felt that I had a link to was China. And we went up in the mountains of China. We were on the bus. I was the only black. It was another black person, but she was so light skinned, they didn't know she was black. They came, as we got off the bus, they came and hugged me and rubbed my skin and rubbed their skin. They were just as black as I am. Really. Uh-huh. Yeah, China's a very, very historical place. And I climbed the wall, the Great Wall in China. The first time, but the second time we went as the International Women's Conference that Mrs. Clinton started. And we went with the delegation of Dr. Dr. Dorothy Height. And Mother Khadija led the delegation for the Nation of Islam. Susan Taylor, there was a lot of the women from the United States came. And we were very well respected and we were beautifully received.
Excellent. Now, Sister Claudette, speaking of your dark skin, your beautiful dark skin, to be a model in the 60s or back, well, I don't know what, like doing
Black.
a Jet magazine.
Black.
Yes, ma'am. Black, yes, ma'am. I wanted to say, did you ever experience colorism or people not giving you the same amount of love that they may have given other models in your career?
No. They treated me very, very, very kind. And they treated me very kind because I treated them kind. The only time I got mistreated was when I was going to John Robert Powell's modeling school. That's one of the top modeling schools in the country. And I went to a beauty salon. I had made an appointment. And when I got to the beauty salon, I sat for a whole hour. And then I went up and asked the lady, I said, my appointment was for such and such a time. And she said, I'm sorry, we don't do black folks' hair. I said, oh, that's no problem. My hair is straight. I'm part Indian. She said, that doesn't matter. So I went to the president of the NAACP and we filed a lawsuit. And we went to court. Guess what the judge said? After he heard everything, he said, well, I'm going to award this lady because my wife is Swiss and her hair is very curly and very kinky. And I would hate for her to come to a beauty salon and they say that she cannot be served. So he said, case closed. And they've hit all the newspapers in San Diego. And at that time, every black person I know started running that beauty salon. And they even hired a black woman to do hair. But they thought because of my color, that my hair is very straight. So it would be no problem. But that's the only time that I've been, to my recollection, been mistreated because of my color.
Yes, ma'am. Now, Sister Claudette, do you what advice or words, if any, has the most honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan ever given you to make you still keep going all these years since 1985 or since the 80s that makes you keep, still be at the mosque to this day?
Well, the minister, when he teaches, he talks to me with a way and a respect. And he teaches me to always work to help others. It always help to raise the consciousness of brothers and sisters, people of the human family, to come into the knowledge of self. And always remember the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad and our teachers. And he's also told me never to speak negative of anyone. I called him one time and I was so upset with somebody. Brother Minister, you've done so much. It was a person who was a United States congressperson who got busted as a congressperson for what he did. And he was sent to prison. And Minister Farrakhan helped him and his family. I mean, he did so much. And when he came out of prison, he had an interview at the airport. And not one word of thanks did he give to Minister Farrakhan. And I went to the minister, I was very upset. And he said, oh no, sister, we have to pray for the brother. So he's always told me to always remember who I represent.
Yes, ma'am, that's powerful. Well, one last question, Sister Claudette, and thank you all for your comments and your responses. What do you want your legacy to be? Like, how do you want the people to remember you? All right. Okay, 1 second, Joel. He's working it out, Brother Master.
Brother Josh.
Yes, sir.
I think this would be a good stopping point, just out of respect for Sister Claudette and her
okay, cool.
Desire to get home. So can we schedule part 2?
Man, absolutely. We'll work it out. And thank you all, Nasser, and thank you, Sister Claudette, for taking time out of your schedule. Thank you, Brother T. Farrell, and everyone who.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, ma'am. Alaikum salam.
How many people did you have listening?
I can't see the entire total right now. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I want to thank everyone, and I want them to look at my website, claudette'smemories.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
If they have any questions, they can just direct the questions to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can direct them to me.
Correct.
And we'll want to finish this conversation. We can do it another time.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll be more than happy to, and I'm very honored that you would ask me. And thank your mother and your father.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and thank your family, and please give your family our love and greetings. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.